For a break when we come back.
He never passes through the center when he's coming here. So for him, it is easier for him.
Let's make some money. We'll be right back. Good morning.
For you.
music.
Great friends.
Great friends.
Ono ye sports wino omuli ebikulu bye weetaaga okumanya mu muzannyo gw'endiba buli ssaawa wano ku radio esinga okumanya ebyemizannyo 91.2 Crooze FM.
Wadde okimanyi nti omusambi amanyiddwa nga Steve Finani yaliko mu club amanyiddwa ng'ebanafu aba Liverpool ye musambi yekaayi yali asobodde kubeera ng'asamba World Cup n'asamba Champions League UEFA Cup nga kugasa ne liigi etaano ezisookerwako e Bungereza. Ono yasobola okubeera ng'akiika mu World Cup ya 2022 ng'akiikiridde eggwanga lye erya Republic of Ireland. Teyakomaawo, yasobola okubeera ng'akiika mu biko bya Bulaaya ng'akiikiridde club amanyiddwa ng'eya Liverpool mu UEFA Super Cup ojogereko ne FA Club World Cup ate nga yakiikirirawo club amanyiddwa ng'eya Wellingham United ejogereko club ya Birmingham City Notts County ne club amanyiddwa ng'eya Fulham mu liigi ez'enjawulo e Bungereza.
Oyo ye bwino ku 91.2 Crooze FM. Lindirira omulala musaawa weddako.
All today's hit music.
All the hits, one station.
This is 91.2 Crooze FM.
Western Uganda's biggest radio.
Yeah.
Crooze FM.
Great music.
Great music.
Great friends.
Great friends.
It's tough. It's bold. It's real politics. The Big Seat on 91.2 Crooze FM. Great music.
Great music.
Great friends.
Great friends.
Welcome back. 27 minutes past 9 o'clock on Western Uganda's biggest radio station, 91.2 Crooze FM. Great music, great friends. My name is Wes Gibanyaji. Good morning. Catch us on air and online on www.cruisefm.com/stream and on all our social media handles. 912 Crooze FM on Twitter, 91.2 Crooze FM on Facebook and Instagram. And we are Crooze TV for TikTok and YouTube. The visuals are right there. courtesy of Creative Dictum Media. The gentlemen are doing an amazing job. So you don't have to fear that you've missed out on the show. You can be able to catch it later on YouTube. With me in studio is Sifa Safi, panelist on the big set. Bright Mahomes, a coordinator of the National Unity Platform in Mbara, and Simu Banjisi, member of the National Resistance Movement and a businessman in this area, and Musa Tukwa Tanese, who is a member of the National Resistance Movement with a big affiliation on the Mohosi project. The topic of our discussion this morning is already on Facebook. You can go right there and give us feedback. But later on in the show, open up the lines so that you can be able to contribute to the conversation on 752-912-912 and 780-912-910. Now, we shall be later talking about the alternative government of the alternative budget that was laid by the opposition later on in the show. But for now, we're talking about a particular bill that was passed by Parliament this week. And the gist behind this whole bill is in promotion of local content. The local content bill, it was passed. And it says the procurement of goods will be largely with the interest of the East African community, away from the Build Uganda, Buy Uganda. And this was because of His Excellency the President. To give you a background, this bill was passed in September last year, and it was in a way meant to encourage local contractors, producers, and service providers. Sent to the President sent it back to Parliament because he thought it wise that it should never have to be ring-fenced on only Uganda, but on the entire East African community. Let me have Bright Mahomza start with us, because Bright, you're a businessman, I'm certain. When you hear that the President is in consideration of the entire East African community rather than just Uganda, do you think this is in a spirit of good governance and the love of East Africa that he has, away from other players, especially like Tanzania, who more into the coalition of the willing? More in Tanzania first. Kenya, we have what they have, Kenya Kwanza. But in Uganda, it's East African first. Is it a mix of things? Right.
Mr. Banyaji and listeners, I bring greetings from National Unity Platform headquarters at Kavuri now. You know, for you used to know that our headquarters were at Kamwocha. But we recently shifted, and we are now at Kavure, opposite Totar. On that bill that was passed, I can tell you, Mr. Banyaji, personally, I don't see its purpose. Because the way it was passed, looking at entire East Africa, and you know, my view on East Africa is that it is just a stage managed organization. It is of no value. It does not help Ugandans.
How do you say it's of no value when I can travel to Sudan, to the Congo, to Tanzania, to Rwanda without a passport? All I need is a national ID. I don't need a work permit in Kenya.
It depends on what you travel in, because you travel to do what?
Whatever that
is. Yes, you have been allowed to Kenya, to travel to Kenya. After you have reached there, you buy for Tanzania. You buy rice. Rice is grown, processed in Tanzania. You are saying we are an East African community. You cannot come with that rice here in Uganda without paying tax. You go to any Kenyan supermarket and buy Afia or buy any drink made in Kenya with 30% local content, local products, local materials, raw materials are locally made from Kenya, but you cannot bring it in Uganda. The taxes are high. Here in Uganda, you know that President Museveni and his government, they are promoting Bubu. They are promoting Buy Uganda, Build Uganda. Instead of Buy Africa, Build Africa.
But that's what he's saying in a nutshell, that now we're moving away from buy Uganda.
That is the point
to buy East
because
Africa,
now
build East Africa.
before they come up with that law, which was it was a private members bill brought by the Kasana member of parliament. He's a new member of parliament, but his original mission was to protect Ugandans. President Museveni rejected that bill on account that it should look at the entire East Africa. My point is, in Kenya, they are looking at Kenyans. In Tanzania, they are looking at Tanzanians. In Uganda, you are saying we look at all of them. Yet it's not possible. You know how many Ugandans that have lost lives in southern Sudan? You cannot travel to Congo now. You're saying it is easy. You go to Congo and you tell them that you want to import palm oil from Congo. You will see how hard it is for you as a Ugandan to bring palm oil from Congo. So some of these things we are talking about are just maybe for academic purposes. But when you go on ground, you don't find them there. So for me to say that for any company to have a contract here, first of all, it must subcontract. Even if it is an international company, it must subcontract a local what? A local company.
Local company. Now that literally means that local company will not only be Uganda, but must be from
for the member of parliament.
Yes.
The member of parliament who came up with the bill, his argument was the local company must be Ugandan. Now President Museveni says it must be East African. You understand?
Yes.
Because why? Because they know that most of their companies are hidden in Tanzania, in Kenya. They are just in Rwanda there, and for them, they think they can hoodwink everybody. The purpose of the bill was to protect, first of all, two things. One, capital flight. These international companies, when they come here and get contracts, they get a lot of profit, and that profit is taken away to their original countries for investment. So the man was saying, the member of parliament for Kasanda was saying that let the local company be subcontracted, so that we share as Uganda, we share on the profit on that contract. Secondly, his emphasis also was on contracts for government contracts, especially that the contracts that involve government money. Because this money that is going to be involved is not East African money. It is Ugandan taxpayers' money. So that's why we had to concentrate on Uganda, is not on East Africa. For me, I know that East Africa, even when you are saying that you can easily travel, one, there is a problem. There is a problem with one country called Uganda. You know, now in Kenya there is a crisis. When you ask some of the Kenyans, they say that their crisis is partly blamed on President Museveni. They know that he was behind the winning of who? Of Ruto. You know,
Museveni is such a powerful man.
Yes, if he's
to
powerful,
be able to influence Kenyans to
problem.
vote
If he's
in
powerful,
his interest.
Yeah, if he's powerful, then you perceive him as powerful. But for me, you know, he's not a cooperative person. He could be powerful, but living an independent life. And we are saying, yes, because my point is,
yes,
when you ask, is it Macha?
Riek
Machar of Southern Sudan, he's going to tell you that most of his problems are entirely blamed on President Museveni. when you go to Congo, it is a problem. You know, he gave a statement yesterday that his UPDF is in Congo.
If you ask Tshisekedi,
not to fight the M23. That for M23 we are okay with them, but we are in Congo to fight for other causes. Yet we haven't even finished paying for the crimes we committed there. We are paying now 11 trillion. I'm told they went to court and challenged it. We are paying now some other smaller money, but we are paying money. So the truth of the matter is, President Museveni has been a problem to most of these East African countries, and there is no East African country that can foolishly accept to cooperate with Uganda when the president of Uganda is still Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. Therefore, if we want to change things, one, we must see a peaceful transition locally here made in Uganda. If we don't see a peaceful transition, not a succession. This man, I see him putting on MK t-shirts and caps. Because for him, that means for him, he wants a succession. Uganda is not a kingdom. We want a peaceful transition of power, which is a strong pillar of democracy. We cannot have development without democracy. That's why our budget yesterday was based on fundamental freedoms human beings are entitled to enjoy. So for that matter, that rule that doesn't look at Ugandans, at local Ugandans, yet we are going to use taxpayers' money to fund those contracts, I don't agree with it.
Let me bring in Banjisi here. Banjisi, President Museveni seems to be very obsessed with East Africa. I have seen whenever President Museveni is addressing the nation, he has the East African flag on his left and the Ugandan flag on the right. When I see the Tanzanian president addressing her country, the same with Rwanda, they have their presidential standard on the left, and there is no flag of East Africa while addressing their countries. I have critically followed this in Kenya, in Tanzania, and in Rwanda. They will have their presidential standard. In Uganda, the president, I'm very certain that Ugandans don't even know the color of the presidential standard in this country, the maroon presidential standard. But we know that President Museveni always has the East African flag. What is the whole obsession of President Museveni with East Africa? Yet his counterparts have interests for only their country. Asime Banjisi.
Thank you so much, Banyaji, and viewers and listeners once again. Banyaji, the truth of the matter is there are some things I agree with His Excellency. And there are some things that modern times have overtaken. We as Africans uniting, becoming one, would work in our favor because our strength would lie in numbers. And we all know the Western world is here to divide us and advance their neo-colonialism agenda. So divided we fall, united we stand. But nevertheless, world over, there is a new trend of protectionism. We are seeing the wars between America and China, the chip-making industry, Hawaii, GTZ, and others, where America is trying to protect their interests. The European Union, same thing. BRIC exit, it's the same thing.
In fact,
priority
Brexit is really fundamentally on protectionism.
That's what I'm telling you.
Yes.
And that's why I'm saying this time round, Banyaji, I for one, am bitter. Why am I bitter? You know it, I'm a contractor in the road sector. What Bright was saying, I would agree with him. That's 30%. UNRA, Kajina, when she came in, she brought in that provision, whereby every contract, 30% of the works must be done by the local companies to promote Ugandans, so that we can also earn, whether it's borrowed money, it's Ugandan taxpayers' money, because we shall pay that money back with interest. So we must protect our interests first. When you go to Rwanda, when you go to TZ, when you go to Kenya, multiple times, you've seen Kenya. This time around, when they got trains, they stepped in to be like, no, this time around, we expect bumper harvest in regards to our dairy products. So we should protect our own. Nevertheless, we should not be oblivious to the fact that our market as Uganda, population of about 48 million Ugandans, it's not big enough. Where shall we put the surplus if we decide to close our borders? So it would make sense if we could agree as the East African community. We zone our countries. We see Tanzania is so good at this. Can they produce in surplus and supply the whole region? Uganda is so good at this. Can they produce in surplus and supply the whole region? But now the challenge is that we are having them as presidents of the East African countries, they are not agreeing on some of these key East African protocols. They are there in writing, but on the ground, are we reaping the benefits of those protocols? Are we reaping the benefits of those treaties? So, our MPs, to a larger extent, they are right. They must protect Ugandans first, because we are seeing Kenyans are protecting themselves first. You saw the incidents, the multiple, like in Southern Sudan. What has happened on several occasions, 3 or 4 of them, Ugandan-owned businesses being burnt, Ugandans being killed. Even Southern Sudan was supposed to compensate our business people that lost property and money there. Up to now, they are still demanding. So we need to live in an idealistic, realistic world. And times change. So even the World Trade Organization, my worry right now is it might not be having any work. Because if you look at the BRICS nation, which have about almost 75% of the world's population, are saying, let's unite, we walk away from the Western world, because they are now trying to ring fence their interests.
Okay.
We also ring fence our interests as China, Russia, India, South Africa, and more countries are actually joining. When you look at Iran, Saudi Arabia, Uruguay, they are picking interest. So we must protect our interests first as we think of opening up.
Okay,
whoever
thank you.
opens up to us, we also open up to him.
Sifa Safi, picking on from where Asimwe Banjizi has stopped. Our niche as Uganda. Recently, we were, marketing Uganda as a destination for tourists. Now we know Rwanda is way ahead of us. Tanzania has always been ahead of us. Kenyans with a Magic Kenya is way ahead of us. So if the president thinks East Africa, which I think would not be a bad thing, but what is our comparative advantage? That even when we open up, even when we think East Africa, it would be in our interests. But there is thinking East Africa when it's actually working against us. For example, we know the labor force in the region. We trail behind Kenya. We know they have a bigger labor market that is more resourceful. And where is our niche? Where is our comparative advantage? That even when the president says, Parliament, look here, let us look at ourselves as more East Africans than Ugandans. Do you think this would work out for our good, Sifo?
Thank you, Banyaji. And thank you, Bright and Bunny, for your submissions. First of all, Banyaji, like my friends have said, yes, there wouldn't be a problem for us to unite as East Africa. Because you know what, the benefits that come with the unity and all that. For example, market, employment and all that. But Banyankwere ndo bajirangu toko basa kwiruka kurazo muro owenzu ya murano wawe ukarekea witness. Before we run, to salvage property from our neighbor's house that has caught fire, let's first solve our problems here as a country. Because the other day, Banjis gave a very good example of Kenya when they said that they expect a bumper harvest because of the rains, and so they are going to have a lot of milk and the surplus, so they did not want powder milk from Uganda and all that. So while other countries are trying to protect their people, their citizens, goods and services and whatever, we want to act sometimes like we are angels. Because other countries have protectionism, as much as some people call it misguided, and yes, at times it is misguided, like the case of Kenya that I've just given an example. So for me, it is good, yes, that we look at East Africa for protocol, for business, for whatever. But let's first begin with Ugandans. The very whole purpose of having this law, this bill for local content, is to protect Ugandans. And for them, actually, what motivated them specifically and basically is the issue of oil and gas. Because, they were expecting a lot, other companies to come and invest here and there and all that, partake of the issues, activities and all that. So they expected a lot of that. So for me, much as we are looking at oil, there are other things we have to look at. Bunny gave an example of infrastructure, roads and whatever. So why don't we first look at the reason we have this bill and then, decide otherwise? Because if you talk of 30%, actually, according to the president, he was saying that this percentage should be determined by the minister, something that the MPs did not, the idea that MPs did not buy. They said, let us put 30%. And actually, I thank them on that particular note. Though even for me, 30% is not enough. However,
it's the minimum.
Yeah, it's the minimum. However, as we try to protect Ugandans, Banyaji, there are so many other things that we should look at. For example, trainings, technology and all that. Because you're going to talk of 30%, and when you're looking for Ugandans first, you cannot even get 10% of those Ugandans you're looking for. So there are other things we must look at before we just focus on, the 30%. people are giving an example of there was a war between Tanzania and Congo as they were exporting, was it sugar from Tanzania to Congo? And they were saying, no, we have seen cases of rice from wherever to wherever, other countries, from one country to another. So other countries try to do this, you know, for the good of their citizens. But for us, if we try to look at everything East African, yes, some of these things are really good, like I said. But at one point or another, we are going to look at Uganda as a country, whether we like it or not. Because other countries...
are you saying the president is not being a bit realistic?
Not really.
And in tandem with reality, because his obsession with East Africa and the interest of East Africa way ahead of the interest of Uganda. Don't you think it works against us?
In one way or another. And actually the mover of the motion was saying that there is no reason why he should sit and make laws for East Africa, not Uganda. And I think I concur with him, because we should look at our country first before we run to East Africa. Yes, we have other things that are uniting us as a community, Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, and other member states. But then there are certain things we should look at first. Like I told you, we are looking at the oil and gas sector that we are looking forward to achieving from. But if we don't really focus on this particular thing, and we get mechanisms and guidelines to implement this bill, it's not going to make sense. And at the end of the day, Ugandans are not going to benefit. Because like my friend says, if we are looking at East Africa as a community, but we have a debt of I don't know how many trillion shillings, who is going to pay this money? It is Ugandans that in the first place. So let's give them an opportunity to benefit from the sectors that we have, oil and gas, like I said, and others, so that we can, at the end of the day, make sure that we pay without really hurting us seriously. So it is good that we look at ourselves as East Africans, but let us first look at ourselves as Ugandans, because that's what happens. Even Mwalimu Julius Nyerere said this: you look at yourself as a Tanzanian first before you run to East Africa. And for me, we have been looking at, like some people are saying, we have to walk the talk, yes. But East African community, since it was revived, it has been here for several years. And we have made some achievements, yes, like you said, trade, movement, and whatever. But we still have some cases where some people suffer in a neighboring country and no one is bothered. The other day I was looking at someone talking of Ugandans running to Ethiopia. Is it Ethiopia? Though much as it's not a member state of East Africa. But there are issues, and they are saying they are trying to look at how to deal with these people because they are illegal in that country. So for me, every other country looks at itself as a country. And then they look at East Africa as a community, or as Africa as a family. But finally, yes, I want to thank the mover of the motion. He tried to show the public that he knew what he wanted in this motion, and that is why he did not concur with MPs who tried to ignore some of these particular issues. For example, he said yes, it was not debated, but let them have time off and try to bring in some other clauses that will be looking at Ugandans, and people were not buying that idea as MP. So for me, somehow he was frustrated, but we are solely behind this bill. Yes, the only problem now and challenge is implementation of the same, so that we can achieve from it.
Okay, thank you. Musat Kwatanse, we know certainly that you see, these Ugandans are also not right. When a Ugandan, for example, is given an opportunity to subcontract or even given priority over a foreign company, they go ahead and disguise as a local company when it's a foreign company and collaborate with international players. You see, working against the spirit of the bill. Our ethics and our values as Ugandans is also something that is doubtable, because you see, the interest of the bill is, can we have this sourced in Uganda? Can we have at least a certain percentage of the workforce in a company being Ugandans? But when you do an audit, the directors are Indians, are Pakistanis, and all over the place, even when they know, and this is orchestrated by a Ugandan. Don't you think that even at an international stage, we work against ourselves as Ugandans? Never has it been, as for any Ugandan, that they consider themselves very Ugandan to protect the interests of this country.
Thank you, my brother Banyaja, and to the comrades for their submissions. First of all, it has always been a question in me whether wherever Uganda is borrowing money from outside, that money come when it is conditioned that it must benefit those who the donors or those who have given us the loan. Because in most cases, I will give an example. When you look at most of the roads in Uganda, big contracts are owned by companies that are not in Uganda. When you look at the oil and gas currently, you look at the contract, Uganda goes and gets a loan of let's say 1 trillion, but you find around 900 billions go in the hands of the of non-Ugandans. Then only like 10 billion only remain in Uganda. So in simple terms, the loans we get, much of the money benefit non-Ugandans, and at the end of the day, the person who pays the tax to cover the loan is a Ugandan. So really, I think this honorable who brought this bill was a foreseer, was seeing very far and looking at the future of Ugandans, and I concur with him.
But also, and, are Ugandans competent enough to take on this contract?
And,
because oil and gas, perhaps some have had the opportunity of going to London and the US to train.
That's
but you see, we may have this whole obsession of Ugandans, but we have the competence.
My brother Banyaji, let me first clarify this.
Yes.
According to the bill, if you have gotten a chance to read through the bill, it guides well. It says that in a situation, for example, we have the oil and gas being extracted from Lake Albert. In a situation where our scientists from Makerere, from Chambogo, who have done petroleum and gas engineering from those institutions, if they don't have the necessary skills to do that job, it is the government now to use part of the money they are supposed to use to extract the oil, to take our fellow Ugandans outside and get the knowledge, then come and exercise the...
Unfortunately, they are taking Rwandese. Unfortunately, most of the people that are benefiting are foreigners, especially from Rwanda.
No, but we know certainly of Ugandans who have been state-sponsored to other countries to train and obtain experience. No. For example, is the good gentleman who heads the petroleum authority Rwandese or Ruvondo or something like that? Not
so,
certain.
Mr. Banyaji,
yes,
that's what I want to clarify,
yes,
so that when we are giving listeners information, we give them full-baked information. The bill is very clear that Ugandans, if they have skills to the required skills, the government should take the initiative to send the Ugandans abroad and get skills. Then when they come, they do that work. Actually, the whole bill is to protect Ugandans. I will give you an example, Mr. Banyaji. If you have ever gone to Soroti, there is a fruit factory that was started from there. And all Soroti people were told to grow fruits. Teju.
Yes.
Now, when they started producing the Teju juice, because Ugandans ignored it, it lost market. Now, wherever you are going to Eastern, especially the parts of Soroti sub-region, you find a lot of oranges and mangoes along the way. People suffering with the mangoes, people suffering with the oranges, yet people are motivated that since we are giving you a fruit factory, now start growing fruits, then the fruits will be absorbed in the factory, then of course they expected the juice to have market. Now if there was this bill was in existence to protect the juice, the Tuju juice, all the fruits that we find along the roads would be absorbed in the factory, and by now a Ugandan would be benefiting. But you can see, because there is no bill to protect the factory products, and there is no bill to protect this farmer who has produced those oranges. That's why at the end of the day you find Ugandans are not benefiting, and that's why I say the honorable was very right. And on Mzee Museveni's opinion of East Africa, yes, Mzee Museveni's opinion was very okay, because he's forcing looking at the.
But that's a contradiction,
But then what we are saying is, I am saying Mzee must also look at this. You cannot leave your Ugandans suffering and look at the East Africa, because the East Africa is a big thing, and yet we have institutions in Uganda training students every now and then, every year. Actually my pain has always been every now and then we have people graduating medicine and surgery, we have civil engineers, we have petroleum engineers, but now and then we find contractors on roads people are not from Uganda.
Let's
we
stop for a
find
break.
Good doctors not from Uganda. So we ask ourselves now, how has the government protected the institutions to provide the quality we need as a country so that we provide good services and the money we get outside as loans benefit the Ugandans?
Let's stop for a break. When we come back in the second hour, we shall be looking at the implementation of this bill. We'll be right back.
It's tough. It's bold. It's real politics. The Big Seat on 91.2 Crooze FM. Great music.
Great music.
Great friends.
Great friends.
The only reason other radio stations exist.
91.2 Crooze FM, great music, great friends. My name is Wesige Banyaji. Good morning, and thank you so much for keeping it here with us. And we're talking about the Local Content Bill 2022. It was adopted by Parliament after making an amendment with the advice of the President on the word Uganda be replaced with East Africa. And indeed, it went ahead to be replaced with East Africa. But now the question is, what first? East Africa Kwanza or it's Uganda Kwanza? So that's what we are debating this morning. Now, the problem has been Ugandans being able to build capacity to do government contracts or even provide goods and services. But priority is given to those that have built experience, that have the financial power to some, because government sometimes runs these projects without having all the money, and they want a company that can be able to fast track a project and later be reimbursed the money. And Ugandan companies have not been, sadly, been able to do some of that. But now the Parliament went ahead to say 30% of this must be provided by Ugandans. President Museveni says this must be East Africa. That means if at all there is a road to construct and the Chinese have taken the contract, and within the law they are supposed to subcontract a company, that means they will not only look at Ugandan companies but also go and hire Tanzanian companies or Rwanda, no, South Sudan or Congo against Ugandans. So it's about Ugandans now being or more of better than their counterparts in East Africa. Otherwise, the priority would be given to any other player within the region. And that's what we are talking about this morning. Let me go back to, with me in studio, by the way, is Sifa Safi, Asim Evangelisi, Bright Mohomuza, and Musa Tukwatanse. Bright. You seem to suggest that everything is wrong because President Museveni is at the realm of government, which is not true. Because now, President Museveni is not the one that has stopped Ugandans from building companies that are competent enough to take up these contracts. What is wrong with having a Ugandan company that can fully construct the Ginger Express? What is wrong? Is it the problem of President Museveni?
The problem of President Museveni. You know, you should look at history. Before he came to power, Uganda was there. And how was it that time? You remember the regional hospitals we had then? He has never, since he came to power, he has never established any regional hospital. He found that Uganda then, which was very, very, very young politically, had a functional railway, Uganda Railway Corporation, which was working very, very, very smoothly. He has destabilized it. I am told that some of the iron, some of the raw materials that were making the way for the railway were worked on here in Mbarara. And after working, yes, because you see the person who was working on them was appointed a minister for trade. So, and I can tell you that President Museveni found when we had a competent industries that were working. Ginger was a big city for manufacturers.
Yes.
It was an industrial hub. But now when you go to Ginger, you find the garbage welcoming you to Ginger. Garbage. Here we have issues of road access roads and what, but at least the garbage is a little bit managed. But in Ginger, which was an industrial hub for almost East Africa.
But decentralization is a policy of government. Some of the local people have been given power on behalf of His Excellency the President to execute some of those policies.
I don't want you to divert me.
No, it's not diversion.
I'm only telling you.
It's not diversion.
We had a commercial bank which was extending loans to the local people. We had two banks.
But do you remember to blame the World Bank and the IMF for advising the new government of President Museveni to actually prioritize? It was a condition.
Now you are saying You are saying that the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund didn't work in Kenya. You are saying that they never went to Tanzania. We are saying because all those countries I'm mentioning, they remained with their original banks. Here, do you know how many banks are from Kenya and are operating in Uganda? Over 4. Equity, KCB and others. 4 banks from Kenya that are here, indigenous banks of Kenya. But there is no indigenous bank of Uganda that extending any financial service to any country. I am told that Centenary recently
yes, in Malawi.
is trying to establish itself in Malawi. We are praying for them. But you know it is not a government bank. But the ones I'm referring to,
an indigenous bank.
They are the ones I'm referring to. It was started by Mapera, who is not your brother. So for me, I know it is President Museveni. Why? His policy on investment has been poor. Because you cannot hike the tariff of electricity. You hike taxes. You give exemptions to your relatives and friends. Those that matter, you don't access those tax exemptions. And you think investment will take place. That's 1. 2, you cannot fail to put in place any policy to accommodate, train, retrain students, those that have graduated, and you leave them to go and start making chapatis. You leave them you encourage them to make bricks. You encourage them to provide borders.
Bright moments are there is no government globally that is able to provide all these necessities to their citizens.
No, we are saying
even Singapore that is known, even Qatar that is known for being very smart and citizen oriented.
Why are our companies incompetent?
Yes.
We are saying our companies are incompetent because the government has not taken it seriously to improve them. The government does not give them tax holidays. The government does not give them an opportunity to train their workers, to allow the company workers to go and train in other countries. The government of Uganda does not give tax incentives or other incentives to these local companies.
Okay.
They don't even give them financial relief. Sometimes you find that the government of Uganda, through parliament, passes money to go and help these companies.
Information.
The ones who access money
let's allow the information.
Are members of parliament. The ones who access money are members of First Family and others. The local companies don't benefit from. I can tell you, you also know that there was money that was passed to help private people who own private schools. None of them accessed money. None of them accessed money. There was a directive by the president that the companies that had acquired loans during COVID-19 be helped. 1, to stop the interest. Secondly, to reschedule and see how they can pay that money.
But you see, good economics does not require any state globally to even go and dictate how the private sector is run. Theirs is policy.
Yeah, theirs is policy, but
they are not going to go and tell Stanbic Bank.
Policy. If you have a policy,
yes.
But you are saying your tax policy is harsh to local people. We are saying roofings is given a tax exemption. Okay. It is a giant. It has everything, but Mr. Banji's company, which is just trying to stabilize, it is not given an opportunity to survive without.
But give us that information.
Is it fair, really?
Yes, give us that information.
Thank you so much, Banyaji, and Bright. Thanks for some of the insights. But for your own information, we have the Uganda Development Bank, and money is there. And I would even give examples of some of the businesses that have gotten that money. Because as Uganda Development Bank, there are 4 key sectors that they have interest in. Services, agro-processing, industrialization, because it trickles down. And the likes of Kazire, the likes of Cash, these guys in Isinjiro, of Professor Kabachenga, who process meal food to supply World Food Program, they have benefited. And that money is there at an interest of 2% to 12%. But unfortunately, some Ugandans are not aware. So the government is not seated, and I would agree with Bright. Some of the government policies, especially taxes, our tax regimes are not friendly, Banyaji. The interests of commercial banks 23 and above, it's here a lot of money. If government can't borrow at that much, then what about we Ugandans? So some of these things...
But these are not unique challenges to only Uganda. Kenya right now is holding protests, and some of the issues that Kenyans are raising are the issues that you're raising as Ugandans. So it's not very unique for you.
It's not very unique here, but we are living in a global village. When you look at the interest rates in Europe right now, the other day...
They're even higher.
No, they are less.
No, they are less, but their tax regime is
the tax regime
yes.
is high. But Banyaji, now let me give you an example here in Uganda. When I sign a contract, every payment, I must remit 18% VAT. There is withholding.
Which is about 6%.
6%.
Yes.
That makes it 24%. There is income tax. It's a lot of money, and money has to be paid. 2, the way Bright said, why should these big multi-international corporations be given all these incentives at the expense of our local companies? Especially, we all know that our economy thrives because of SMEs. But when it comes to these policies, they are never given priority.
Okay.
And all we are saying is, whatever you can do for these multi-international corporations, do it for the SMEs. Because you should remember, these multi-international corporations, they expatriate the profits.
Okay.
Whatever they make, they take it back. Whatever I make stays here.
Okay, let me bring in Musa here. Musa, you see Ugandans just love to complain. There was a deal from Algeria that was given to Ugandans to export goats. The Algerians were very particular on the weight, the quality, and the type of goat they wanted. These Ugandans here failed to supply. In Uganda here, if you tell even a simple village that as a village mobilize, we want this quantity for a whole year, Ugandans will not provide. They will not. So as Ugandans, I feel, we just love to complain. We just love to think the problem is with government. Even when an opportunity comes, Ugandans cannot come through. Musa Twatanse.
Now, to my brothers who have made submissions, thank you. What I want to say is that one man said that an opportunity comes to a prepared person, and therefore, as Ugandans, we must always get prepared for opportunities. And second, what I want to say is that number one, when you look at Ugandans, we have over-complained, and we always complain about taxes, but now when you go to other countries outside Uganda, you realize that even throwing this simple thing here, this bottle here, you throw it somewhere, you must pay tax for that.
Because here nobody is against the tax policy of Uganda. We are only saying no. We are discussing about the fairness. The fairness. Why should I pay tax and Banyaji doesn't? Why? What criteria do they follow?
How will you encourage Banyaji, who is a multinational, to come and invest in Uganda when there are other 53 other countries on the continent?
Why should it be a project to encourage a foreign investor when you have failed to encourage local people? Why should it be a project? Secondly, we are saying the small taxes we are paying, we don't see what it does. Where the government puts their money, yes, their priority is where in areas that do not affect direct Ugandans. We are saying, why doesn't government redirect their spending to areas that affect Ugandans, like health, education, infrastructure, and other things?
Okay.
Thank you. I think Bright agrees that taxes must be collected, and the regulation he's talking about, I don't think tax exemption is there where some people pay taxes and others don't pay.
But we know there is a 10-year tax holiday for an investor that comes here with big money.
For an investor. Now, Mr. Banyaji, when you look at our GDP, comparing it with other countries and those developed countries, you see our GDP is still low. And how do you boost the GDP? First of all, to encourage investors come invest in Uganda, and as they are investing in Uganda, one, they are curbing down unemployment, because the investments they bring will employ the Ugandans. And that's why.
But what if it is deliberate of government to encourage a local company, local startups, to actually scale up to a level of a multinational? They would still provide the same interest that government wants.
Now, a local company, Mr. Banyaja, as you have said,
yes,
a local company, the challenge we have as Ugandans, you said it that most of the Ugandans are not serious.
Information.
Some of the Ugandans are not serious. How are they not serious? We have always had the companies having works. They get contracts, but the very Ugandans provide shabby work.
No
and
information, Musa.
Yes.
Banyaji. Musa and our dear listeners, we should not be oblivious to the fact that currently, every financial year, we lose.
But Bright, don't be petty, please. Yes,
we lose over 2.8 trillion Ugandan shillings in tax incentives and exemptions, and this is an economy that is heavily relying on borrowing. We are currently...
But now, my basic economics asks, how does government encourage international player to bring their billions of dollars
Banyaji, this thing should be fair. They should spread it out. Build the local capacity as well. Because bottom line, our economy, the biggest contributors, we thrive on the SMEs. They employ the majority. 2, these so-called multi-international corporations or companies, do they keep their end of the bargain? Because some of the provisions are 30% of the company employees should be Ugandans. Are they Ugandans? Are they compliant on other fronts? 30% of the materials they use in production should be sourced locally. Are they sourced locally? We need to go into details. We should not just look at this Rubowa Hospital thing. Did we get a good deal? That's why I was saying Betty Kamia should resign or be sacked. She only makes public outbursts, but does she walk the talk?
Okay. Musa conclude.
That's what I was saying, that the international companies, we cannot stop them from coming here. But this MP who proposed the local content bill, that's why we are saying the local content bill should be implemented, because the local content bill has all what we are emphasizing here, that the Ugandans...
It's no longer local, it is a regional content bill now.
No, it is still a local content bill, Mr. Bright. Now, if the international companies come here in Uganda and invest, or they are doing some project, are Ugandans given a priority as the local content bill suggests? If they are suggesting 30% of Ugandans, actually not even 30% and more, 30% is the minimum, are the Ugandans given a priority? If it is looking at employing Ugandans, are Ugandans given a priority? If it is looking at goods of Uganda, are the goods sourced from here in Uganda? That's what we should look at. But saying that the international companies should not be considered, I think with our GDP...
we are saying they spread out the benefits.
Yes.
Nobody said that we don't want international companies to come here. We are only saying that they shouldn't be given too many opportunities against at the expense of Ugandans. We are saying, let us motivate these Ugandans who are initiative, who want to do something here in Uganda. In Barara, for example, we had a factory that was manufacturing iron sheets, iron bars, and nails, belonging to now the current Minister for Trade. That factory collapsed. If the money, if the incentives that they gave to roofings were given to that factory would still be there.
BMK would be up and
The BMK would still be there.
Let's stop for a break.
Which was employing over 600 Uganda people. We are now stuck. It is,
Yeah, okay. Sifa, did you
so
want...
nobody has said that we don't want...
Yes, in a second, Sifa, before we go for a break.
Not in a second.
Okay.
Banyaji, I want to tell you that, yes, we have laws and whatever, like we have always said, but they're not implemented. People are talking of taxes here. Yes, we have to complain about the tax policy because it's not pro-Ugandans. It favors people from abroad. It favors foreign investors, But what I'm saying is, in order for us to achieve, like I said, from this bill, we have to ensure that what we have passed, or if that is if the president assents to the bill to make it a law, we have to ensure that it is implemented. Because let me give you an example of Angola. Their petroleum activities law of 2004 sets a local content target of the workforce at 70%. But they don't stop there. They make sure that these companies have to submit an annual, what they call Angolanization, a plan of what they have done to the Ministry of Energy in order to achieve that target of 70%. But for us here, you're going to talk of 30% and no one bothers, no one cares. After all, some of these people are supposed to follow these things up. We'll connive with these so-called local companies, to call them, actually not local. We'll connive with some international companies to call them local here. So in other words, we make laws. What the Chinese are doing. In 2014, government lost a lot of money in billions of shillings through UNRWA to a fake company, American company, and they were thinking that they were giving it to a local. So things like that. We are saying even if you make 100 bills and make them laws, if you are not focusing on the national, on the nationals of this country, or not.
Okay, let's stop for a break.
But finally, what we are saying is, like my friend said, it's no longer a local content bill. It's now a regional content bill. So in other words, we are not directly benefiting as Ugandans.
Let's stop for a break. We'll be right back. Good morning.
It's tough, it's bold, it's real politics. The Big Seat on 91.2 Crooze FM. Great music.
Great music.
Great friends.
Great friends.
Show me awesome. Show me 91.2 Crooze FM.
Crooze FM, great music, great friends. We are right here on Plot 12 Moti Lane, in the heart of Mbarara, the land of milk and honey. My name is Wesige Banyaji. We literally left with a few minutes to get out of here, but nonetheless, we now going to the lifeline of the show. The telephone calls and the feedback on our social media handles. Keep the conversation going on Facebook. Twitter is a little bit, has a glitch, but we shall be able to rectify that going forward. But nevertheless, I have a comment from Ajuna David. You're listening again from Kabare. I want to thank you so much. And Basa Katunje, on the topic of discussion, you're saying the problem is that we export as substitute goods. Kenya is the most hindering factor as to why this bill is being stipulated. We cannot fight Kenya and lose other member states to export. And you're saying we cannot even be selling toothpicks. Well, Gaddafi, you're saying, I think Kenya is our biggest problem, as it is the reason as to why the bill is tabled. But fighting Kenya will mean that we are on the verge of losing our East African community. But also Kenya, you wrote something that I cannot read there, but it's saying, why should they should handle us the good way we handle them? Orishaba Mashal, you're saying the words, President Museveni's words are good, but it's not being practiced. When you ask business people, importation and exportation of goods among East Africans isn't simple. Mahad, you're saying welcome back. You're listening again from Kabare University. Thank you. And those that are streaming on YouTube, on Crooze TV, we appreciate you. Atuijuche Alosias, I see you. Mugabe Mahad Kamukama, you're watching on Crooze TV, and you're saying, I hope Mr. President wanted to make Kenyans more happier. Because I do remember when you were crying that Kenya had abandoned Uganda had banned Uganda to export her milk powder, which wasn't right. Let's go now to the telephone calls on 752-912-912 and 780-912-910. Call us. The big set.
Yes, what's given edge?
Good morning.
Good morning. Governor Kutered.
Karibambe.
Dr. Andrew Nabari Kizibanda.
Yes, Dr. Andrew.
Ati noleba banyaji. Omuntu tinemu abantu bakwata kwekwata nka group zabo. Bakiza bakukora company. Konkanyo government tikabata kufaho. Kwatire munonga mahanga g'abazungu. Yakira abanyayuganda. Munje unaleba ngo abazungu nubakira abanyayuganda bari kwebendera. Good morning.
Thank you so much for that call. On 752-912-912 and 780-912-910. The big set.
Yes, Ivanyaji, good morning.
Good morning.
Magamba wana modern kurgahanu yo muri Wampara.
Yes, modern or Wampara.
At point ya ti ezo bill zone ziba passing here and there in the parliament. Omuntu as a common person ezo bills azimanya. Na manya bills ezo ekigenderwa kyazo abugwana ba passing bills osanga abantu bahansi as a common person a business man ariyo ko hansi following parliament byekora following so ba parliamentarians baguma passing bills ezo. Let them go back in their respective districts and what bagambira abantu ezo bills and they kumanya so that common person omuntu wahansi ayetegereze ekikugenda omumisho. Good morning.
Thank you so much. The big set. Hello, caller. Yes, good morning.
Good morning to you. This is Junior Sagawa, as usual, from Chitorentuha in the Busheng district.
Yes, please, Agava.
Busheng district has been represented on the big seat.
And we appreciate you very much.
Now, I have listened attentively. It's only Madame Sifa, who is a good girl, but in that group of the Tukwatanese and Asim Evangelist. But Vanjisi has shown that he has an interest of scratching a leopard's anus. He should wait for his package in 2026 because the laws in Uganda work selectively, not correctively. So he should wait for his package in 2026 as he's contesting on an leopard. He knows that leopard. Good show.
Okay, thank you so much. We hope Vandisi gets the message. The big set.
Yes, Crooze.
Yes, how are you?
Fine, you are talking Krito Dan from Uganda. Mwene nyekina nindeba. Omuseveni cyariho takucenga. Abwo kuba umuntu kusigo wawe nahasya ukaza kuyamba hano. Atubwe twantu considering East Africa. Nabwe tukatwara ibintu bitu bakabyanga. Atawuntu abantu kora. Ikatuyegumira mu nabyo. Company guzigumeze yezitu. Sigara East Okubona buto baturumu.
Yebari mnonga. The big seat. Oh, we just lost that call on 752-912-912 and 780-912-910. We're talking about the Local Content Bill 2022 that was passed by Parliament. It is meant to protect the East African market against international players. Should it be zeroed down to only Uganda? Uganda first, Uganda Kwanza, or the true spirit of East Africa that the president is always passionate about? Call in right now on 752 912-912 and 780-912-910. We get to hear from you and what you think about this topic of discussion. The big set.
Hello.
Yes, caller.
Morning, Bajan.
Good morning.
This is Natugumya Diaz calling in from Kamwenge.
Yes, Diaz.
Now my opinion is like this.
On 752-912-912 So let's get to hear from you right now on what you think about this deal.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning.
You are talking to Hillary here at Uganda Rampara.
Yes, Hillary.
Yani ndio abanyagibuzima ibintu ngyetaga banze bashomesa abantu bazaza bashomesa abantu kumanyisa kubanga noshanga abantu bari mbagambo kwifunga kunuya.
Okay. Let me end with this call right about now. The big set.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Banyaji.
Yes, good morning.
This is Mutatina Kamukuze.
Yes, Mutatina.
You made a statement at the beginning of the show regarding when other African presidents are giving nation addresses. As what they put on the left hand and right as the flags are concerned.
Yes.
I see as if our beloved president, they are not into East African thing, they are on their country thing. Yet for us, we are pushing them in joining the African community. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much. Wakanda Rogers on Facebook, you're saying minimum wage is what is important. Ugandans are exploited. But who is going to invest in Uganda that is homophobic? That's what you're saying. I think we've been able to exhaust that topic. Let's engage another DJ here. And yesterday, the opposition, through its leader, Matthias Mpuga, laid an alternative budget to a tune of about 48.9 trillion shillings. And they said that 32.8 trillion will be generated locally. They are sick and tired of dates. And with me in a studio is one of their coordinators in the region, Bright Mohomuza. Bright, how are you going to be able to fund a budget without borrowing? Are you going to increase our taxes?
Yes, Mr. Banyaji. How are we going to increase the budget without borrowing? First of all, we are going to squeeze and make sure that all areas that are now left by government to dodge, avoid, and abandon paying taxes now forced to pay. There are many key areas that are not looked at while collecting taxes. For example, why should a DPC earn all his salary and take it home without paying a tax? Why should a Kano really, Kanos enter into a bar and everybody stands up? A Kano. He takes expensive wine. He moves with very beautiful girls. A Kano of Uganda doesn't pay tax. I don't agree with you. Yet you are saying that we increase their salary. Recently, I was looking at the salary budget for UPDF. It is coming to 800 billions. It is coming to 800 billions. Why? They recently increased the salaries of senior officers. Now they are proposing that they also want to increase salaries of the local. They are called the men of UPDF. Private, not private. Private is somebody without any rank.
The junior officers.
But they are junior officers with the sergeant. See those ones there. We are always saying that if you want more salary, accept to pay tax to pay tax on your salary. You know, why should a teacher pay salary and a Kano doesn't want to pay salary? Sorry, why should a teacher pay tax and a Kano doesn't want to pay any tax? We are saying that in our time they are going to pay. That's one area. Another area is on issue of those companies that have been exempted.
But the narrative that security personnel do not pay tax, I don't know where you're getting it from. These people have deductions on their salaries.
UPDF, I can tell you, maybe if you are fighting with police and prisoners.
Yes.
You PDF, you can consult. They don't, even if you're a brigadier, you don't pay any tax.
Information.
You give information.
Let me first give you information. At least I stayed in a barracks, Rubonge barracks for 3 years,
and
working from there. I have information. Let me give information.
My houseboy at home does not know whether he pay tax or not.
Wait,
it depends. We were staying in the barracks as who? We were doing what in the barracks? Because that's my houseboy at my home.
Don't degenerate it.
That is his reasoning. That is a kind of reasoning.
Can we allow
him?
Allow him to do what? Because you are going to give him a time.
But I'm giving him.
Yes. Now the salary for a private.
Yes.
Because how can you consult a houseboy?
No, let's allow.
A private. If the salary is 450, he will tell you that their actual salary was supposed to be like 500 something. But for them, the only special thing they have is that their taxes are deducted from there, and when they are paying them, the food they eat, the water they use in the barracks, the electricity is charged from their salary. They can tell you their salary is taxed. Everything they use is taxed from their salary. Only that the salary, when they are describing their salary, they describe exactly what they pay, because much of the money is deducted before.
Which tax do they pay?
No information.
Let Banjo say.
Anyway, thank you. You know, it's always important not to misinform our dear viewers and listeners. The fact is, my brother Musa, on this one, you're wrong. Even the building materials that the security personnel use PDF, they are tax exempted. Yes. That's the reason.
No, they have special shops where they can be able to buy.
I'm coming.
So does it mean that
Bright's argument?
Let's state things.
No,
with facts.
I'm stating facts. No, listen.
If they have duty-free shops, does it mean that they don't pay tax?
What Bright is saying is, Banyaji, when it comes to the public service tax regime, how it works, NSSF, pay, income, how they are automatically deducted. These guys in security, because of some reasons, there are some things that they are exempted from, which I agree with and I totally support. Because for development to take place, these people must secure our territorial borders, our sovereignty. We must have peace and security. We should not lament and complain about that. Me, Bright, what I expected you to be telling me is to address like the challenge of losing over 10 trillion Ugandan shillings in corruption.
No, I was still giving a submission.
So, let's tackle the real issues. But for security, even if it was Noop in power, you will need security to play their role for you to stay in power and deliver services.
Let's make some money. We'll be right back.
It's tough. It's bold. It's real politics. The Big Seat on 91.2 Crooze FM. Great music.
Great music.
Great friends.
Great friends.
FM. Great music.
Great music.
Great friends.
Great friends.
Welcome back. 15 minutes to the top of the hour on Western Uganda's biggest radio station, 91.2 Crooze FM. Great music, great friends. My name is Wesige Banyaji. The Big Seat is on air and online on www.cruisefm.com/stream and on social media all over Facebook, Twitter. We are there, and on Crooze TV. We are broadcasting live. The topic of discussion this morning is first local content bill. We've settled. I think the president is wrong on this one. It's important that he prioritizes Uganda ahead of the other players in the East African community, even when we believe in East Africa. But now we're talking about the alternative budget that was laid by the opposition, 48 trillion Ugandan shillings. I think for me, the take home, the opposition says they will be able to provide food for our children in public schools, and the investment in the entertainment and sports sector. Let's engage other players, unless you want to conclude on a matter.
Because what people should know, the listeners should understand, that our budget proposals were entirely based on the establishment and existence of our fundamental freedoms a person is entitled to enjoy. Human rights. You know the kinds of human rights we are having in Uganda, in Uganda's constitution. Now, for us, we're saying, for you to have a budget that is accepted by the public, by the general public, that budget must look at the fundamental freedoms. Freedoms of accessing education. We put too much emphasis on that. Freedoms of accessing health care. There was too much emphasis on that. And I want to tell you, your worry is on how we are going to collect the money. We are going to bridge
You're going to tax us
all
more.
the gaps. No, all the gaps, especially when it comes to fighting corruption. We're going to fight corruption and make sure that there is no corruption. Number one. Number two, we are going to reduce administration burden. We have too much. We have a lot of very many readers, a forest of readers who do nothing completely. We have too much a big parliament, which is unnecessary.
Okay. Let's
and for information, members of parliament don't pay some taxes. They exempted themselves from paying some taxes. Yet a teacher who earns 600,000, they force him to pay tax.
Okay.
So we are saying
Thank you.
all those gaps are going to be looked at, and finally they talked about parish development model. We are saying this is just a political tool by President Yoweri Museveni. It does not intend to solve any problem, any socio-economic problem of Ugandans, and we shall scrap it off immediately and redirect that money to one, having irrigation, establishment of very strong irrigation schemes. We give incentives to the farmers and to the manufacturers, and reduce electricity tariffs to encourage production.
Okay. Thank you so much. Let me have Sifa Safi. Sifa, the theme rethinking Uganda's economy, a human rights approach to resource allocation, it was the theme of the alternative budget. Centering on the Bill of Rights I think ordinarily every Ugandan would expect the opposition, majorly being headed by the National Unity Platform, to center so much on rights. Do you think some of the things that they're advocating for would be achievable if they were in government?
Thank you, Banyaji. To begin with, it's not a matter of sounding rosy and, be all over the place, and because that's what the opposition is doing, trying to, to win favor from the public and find it fascinating and all that. Because one, these people who are with Mr. Mpuga, a man I respect sometimes, were the same people who said that he's in bed with the government. So I don't know how you can start believing. You're saying we who?
To bring divisionism into our party.
Of course, Museveni is. But by let me tell you.
Yes.
So everything is Museveni. He said the problems in America are because of Museveni. When you go to Afghanistan, that is Museveni, like that. So, but what I'm saying is, leave alone the issues of Museveni. We are saying we had all this all over, and we're saying Mpuga this, Mpuga that, and all that. So for me, the most important thing is, I actually like the the corruption part of it, because like I've always said, Banyaji, that is the major cause of the problems we have in Uganda. But they're just saying it, they cannot actualize it. Because when you look at the budget expenditure on the leader of opposition in this government, monthly at least, that is quite a lot of money. So when you talk of cutting it, what are you going to cut exactly? So for me, saying something is one thing and doing it is another. What we all know is these budgets, actually, I don't usually like them, the government budgets and whatever, but we lack an alternative in this country. The opposition we have is just, the drama, acting and all that, causing unnecessary drama and all that. They're not serious. Tell me of someone who you think can even implement what they said. So the only important thing is... But
our Minister of Finance, Chivumbi.
And,
did you watch him?
It's not about watching him. So for me, Banyaji, Ugandans should not be fooled. Let's try to shout and make noise and come up against corruption. And actually, for me, like I've always said, there are some opposition members of parliament that I like. Even opposition politicians, they speak against corruption. They tell you the truth, and they tell you here we cannot do this. Museveni has done it better than we can. All that. So, but the thing is, President Museveni, I call upon you. We have a lot of scandals here involving corruption. But in some cases, we have not seen anything. My friend Musa talked of the people who are demonstrating, about the corruption scandals, especially specifically to do with iron sheets. We have not seen anything, but we are here to get a report from that. So we are saying, even if the budget is over, I don't know how many trillion shillings, if you're stealing from left and right, Ugandans are not going to benefit. But these things of opposition, I told you that when you run out of ideas, you start mimicking what some other people are doing, and that's exactly what they are doing. Okay. So for me, Banyaji, join hands opposition. We have some good MPs in there. We have some other politicians in opposition who are very good. So let us just make noise, like I said, about corruption and fight it. Maybe you are going to get money from that. But when you talk of taxes, which country does not pay taxes? The only thing we should see value for our money. We should see service delivery in this country, but we cannot stop paying taxes.
Okay, thank you. Kwatan Semusa on the topic of alternative budget from government.
The issue of security and trying to target UPDF. So, that is another joke, like I've always said. Because when you start targeting security as the only thing that you think you're going to get money from, how much money, Mr. Bright, do you think you can get by taxing these UPDF officers? And by the way, even if you wanted to target UPDF officers and those who are still on training and whatever, you're not going to get the money. Instead of trying to fight corruption, you are talking of UPDF. If you try to affect and attack UPDF, then even that budget is not going to be implemented.
Thank you, Mr. Banyaji. What the opposition does is to critique the budget for the ruling government, and now we also have to look at their alternative budget and critically look at it. Now, when you look at it, they are saying they will outsource 1 trillion from corruption, and when we look at the money we lose through corruption, it is more than that, I think, yearly. So you see that themselves are already corrupt because they are not, even when you look at what they are proposing, they are not providing modalities how they are going to address corruption and how they will outsource that money that has always been lost in corruption. Second, Mr. Bright is saying that they will scrap off parish development model. Actually, in the budget is saying,
I am not the one who presented
the budget is saying you are going to scrap parish development model and bring the money for parish development model to sectors of irrigation, then you put it in social services. But Mr. Banyaji, for your information and to the viewers, when you look at the pillars of parish development model, pillar number 1 talks about production, storage, processing and marketing. So already what you are proposing, you are just copying from parish development model. When you look at pillar number 4 of parish development model, talks about social services. So that means that what you are saying, you are going to scrap of parish development model to implement parish development model. So in simple terms, their alternative budget for opposition is the budget for the NRM government that has been presented. So there is no new thing. So Mr. Bright and to the opposition members, I think you can find better means of presenting alternatives than just copying and pasting to confuse the public that you are working for Uganda. Thank you.
Banjuzi, on the alternative budget.
Thank you.
First of all, I don't know, all of you are being very generic. There are particular things in this budget that are supposed to be debated. The opposition is saying we shall feed the children. As General Museveni is saying, that is a role of the parents. For us, we shall do good to the children. We shall uphold we shall invest money on protecting the human rights of these Ugandans. Pick it from there.
Thank you. Many times I always say it, and this time round, kudos to our brothers and colleagues in the opposition. Many times I've always said it's high time they raised the bar. Can they always give government an alternative agenda, alternative budget, alternative policies? If they are saying here NRM is not delivering, what is the other alternative that is better than what NRM is doing? So I will start by appreciating that step in the right direction, irrespective of the fact that it's lacking in very many aspects. There are some few key take-homes. As a parent, I would be very happy if all students were fed at school by the government, because the truth of the matter is not every parent can afford to pack food or pay for their children's food at home when some of them are struggling to even raise the basics, stationery, tuition, school fees, this and that, because the cost of education in Uganda is very expensive, and we all know it lies in the hands of businessmen, private school owners, directors, who are also right. They must make returns on their investment because they are borrowing money at interest rate of 23 and above. And those are some of the things that I would be more keenly interested in. Someone telling me we are bringing an alternative whereby we want the cost of education to be brought down. How? We shall give incentives to scholastic materials, give incentives to school directors. We bring down the money they incur in taxes and operating these schools. So let's have serious alternative budget. But this one is more or less copy and paste and rephrasing, paraphrasing. When you talk about the money being lost in corruption, embezzlement scandals, it's a fact. We lose over 10 trillion Ugandan shillings every financial year.
Well, if that was the figure, would have collapsed a long time ago.
No, Banyaji.
It's barely.
That's the money we lose.
Yes.
So the issue should be them now saying we are going to bridge the gap where Kamia has failed to do A, B, C, D, and these other different state agencies that are supposed to fight corruption and embezzlement. We are going to do this and that.
Thank you.
Then, as I conclude, Banyaji, I also expected them to be talking about the reduction of the number of members of parliament. Our parliament is so big.
They talked about it.
Then the cabinet ministers, we don't need them. Our public administrative cost is too high. It must be reduced.
Okay, thank you, Banjazi. Perhaps let me end with Bright on the aspect of reductions on the defense expenditure. How will you protect this country without spending on defense?
No, we won't spend on defense. We are always saying
yes
that defense should concentrate on defense. You understand? Defense should not go to construction. Defense should not go to NADS. Defense should not go to agriculture. The defense should concentrate on defense. If
we have many countries that have developed
a few soldiers, we have
soldiers in the development.
Yes, so we are
our time is fast spent.
That if we are to develop,
yes,
let the defense people, the security officers, concentrate on their cardinal role. Number one. Number two, let the rank from the rank of brigade of Kano and above pay taxes because they have amassed a lot of wealth. And you remember now, even President gave a directive to the IGG not to investigate them. Yet they are everywhere. They are in construction. They are in roads. They are in agriculture. They are in where they are in health. Now you are saying, President Museveni, you are telling us not to investigate officers who are giving services. If you don't want them to be investigated, take them away from direct service delivery. Let them remain on their cardinal role of giving security to this country.
Thank you, Sifa Safi. Thank you, Bright Muhammad sir. Thank you. No, time is fast spent.
Express my appreciation to FIFA for allowing the pausing of matches to allow those who are fasting to break their fast.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Musa Tkwata. And say my punchline this week: there is an increase of men that are defiling children. Can you imagine? I think it's important as men we really think right. Why should we be defiling people's daughters? It is on the increase. Fathers are defiling their own daughters. It's just obnoxious. Have a very fantastic weekend. My name is Wesley Gabanyaji. Let's meet next Saturday on the Big Seat. Good morning.
expressed on this program are not necessarily the views of this radio station or its management.
This radio is regulated by Uganda Communications Commission, UCC.
This is Saturday Night